Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, school is well underway throughout the region with teachers and students busy in the classroom. Behind the scenes have been working year-round, of course, our administrators. And joining me today, Dr. Norm Ritter, Joplin School's interim superintendent. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a few weeks now since school started, but things started off well in Joplin?
They really have. We've had a wonderful start. Classroom teachers were well in place. The behavior has been phenomenal, both the adult and the child behavior, and we're really being very proactive with our approach to behavior. And really, I don't know if you remember, but last fall when we first came in, that was the most important thing that we needed to focus on, and so we did, and so our response has been really very, very good. So, and we're being very detailed about that, and it's been very powerful for us.
You know, some of the people may not recall our discussion talking about behavior, but being a key to learning as well. That, you know, having children in an environment and respect and everything all really tying together.
Right. The behavior piece is really what's really important. You find that out in my experience over the years is that once the behavior is in place, the academics is easy. But if you don't have the behavior in place and the expectations, the high expectations, low tolerances around behavior, and if you're not real clear in dealing with the greeting and as well as following instructions and maybe disagreeing appropriately, apologies, whatever they are, once you get that all in place and the kids know it, you just have to prompt it, and it's amazing how the kids fall in place and they know what's expected, and they respond really well. The Joplin kids are really good kids. They really are.
And this carries through all age levels, from the kindergartners through the high schoolers.
Yeah, preschool.
Preschools.
Preschool all the way through the high school, and really, as you move through the system, you see more an increase in engagement. You're really looking to increase the communication, the collaboration, the critical thinking, and the creativity. And as the system matures, as the student matures, you're getting closer and closer to really having taking risk around the creativity and the critical thinking. It really gets to be a lot of fun.
I can see how they progress through the years, and especially get into high school where they need more collaboration, teamwork. This kind of naturally would lead to that type of behavior.
This is really what business is calling for. It's really what I would call the latest technology, and that is the relationships that are really extremely important. And really, I've identified in my experience 7 different types of behavioral skills that are really critical, and that is to greet, to follow instructions, to agree appropriately, to disagree appropriately, to be able to make an apology, to also to I don't know if I said follow instructions, but to accept no for an answer is really a critical piece. And so, really, as you're looking at all those seem to be the core behaviors across all cultures. And so, once you master those, you're in pretty good shape.
So you're preparing the students of the education of the reading, writing, arithmetic, but also those life skills that will help them when they go into that workforce.
Yeah, those are really core values that are really important for any kind of culture of improvement in ways to get better. And so that focus has really helped us in our start this year. It's really an exciting place. You can walk into some buildings, you wonder if there's kids in that building. And it's not the fact that they want to be quiet. They're highly engaged, but it's engagement with purpose.
You can see the behavior right away.
Oh, yes. It's really an exciting thing.
How about the teacher response to the new year? A lot of excitement among the teachers?
There really are. The teachers, really, I think what's happened is we learned through our research and through the strategic focus and analysis that we did that we need to really push more and more decisions to the site. And so we empowered the classroom teacher. And so really with empowerment, those comes responsibility and accountability. And the teachers want it, and they really like it. And what they need help with is to understand what that means to be empowered. And so no longer they're going to be told what to do. They're basically telling us what they need, and then we help them understand and coach them along that line. And then so there's a lot of cognitive coaching type of focus in helping teachers and work together collaboratively at grade levels, maybe within departments. And so that makes them good critical thinkers as well. And then as they do that, then it just kind of bleeds right into the students, and you have students making critical decisions as well.
And the teachers are the ones indeed that are working hand in hand with the students.
Oh, no question. In fact, the main goal in this, and it'll take 3 to 5 years to get there, is that the students must work much harder than the teacher. So when the teacher leaves, they should feel refreshed at the end of the day, and the student should be exhausted. And so, but to get to that point, it's going to take a lot of work yet.
Learning's a process. You have to put some effort into it and work together.
It really is.
Well, I know shortly before the school year began, you had a State of the District report to the school board, so a chance for you to share some information with the school board. And it was a presentation, I know, with PowerPoint, but let's talk about maybe some of the key points. What were you sharing with the school board, your feelings as superintendent?
Yeah, basically what we did was, this is where we're at this is what we found. And it was kind of a repeat a little bit of the data that we found back in December. But also, after we were able to show that we are fiscally sound, we do have good teachers. We basically do need to create an environment of empowerment and driving that decision down to the classroom. And so we did all of that and just laid it out for the school board and then showed what it's going to take to be able to do that. So we pushed 31 FTEs from the site, from the center office, and really some of them were at the sites, really down into either resources to pay teachers or more FTE, and we gave the system 10 more FTE, so our class sizes went down and made it much more comfortable, and that helped us with behavior as well. So really the state of the district was just to say, hey, this is where we're at. We're moving the resources closer to the classroom. We're empowering the classroom, the decisions that need to be made there, and then also, without question, we're focusing on behavior.
Well, I know we have a graphic on the screen that talks about empowerment, and it's kind of explaining and some of the steps that you were presenting to the board that day.
That quote, by the way, comes from what I would call the guru of high performance, okay? And Mark Blasey, who really, he lives in New York, and he and I are very good friends. And I'm an examiner of high performance systems, and basically he developed that, and it's really right on with what we want, giving people the authority and responsibility. So the accountability is an exciting thing, and people love to be accountable as long as they are the ones making the decision. It's hard to be accountable when you're responding to somebody else, and so that's why this quote of empowerment really
ties into what you're accomplishing.
Very good, yeah. And so as far as when we say empower teachers and staff, we basically have a collective bargaining agreement in place. That took the full year to put that in place. And it's a purposeful driven type of agreement, and making sure that we're always constantly supporting the teachers, and that's why that's in place. And then also as far as teachers' salaries, and then also more staff to be able to support that position. And then the other thing that's really happening with the professional development is that we're, for staff to help us to figure out what they need to get better, we've actually have them to establish and determine what they need, and then eventually we facilitate and support that. And so our staff development is really focused on that. And so cognitive coaching, collaborative time to have conversation, maybe even having the middle school math teachers who are really good and understand, and then eventually they would coach and train the elementary, because our elementary teachers in general are not excited about math. So basically that's all coming from teachers and what they want, and that's how this works.
And of course the children from elementary are going to move on to the middle school, so they want those children to be prepared and learners in that age level.
Yeah, scope and sequence is critical, but it's not just in curriculum and content, it's also in development, staff development. So
if we have another slide that we can look at for continuing the presentation, talking about where we're at, talk about the board meeting summaries, staff and parent community surveys.
Yeah,
that's something you started, and
that's right, and you need to do it every year to see if you're seeing progress, because really the community did not trust the school system, and we're hoping we see an improvement in that. And we found also in this, and also we needed to be very transparent, but we found that the teacher voice is a critical piece in communication within our system, more so than anywhere I've been before. And so the teacher voice, really the teachers speaking and responding to questions. Also, the excitement and pride of teachers is very, very important in the Joplin community. And so we're creating, and not creating, we're basically, that's where the whole idea of empowerment came from. And so when an individual is fully empowered, and now it's going to take some time to get used to that, but when they're there, they get excited, and then they talk about their excitement as opposed to what they dread.
And I noticed on your slide it also talked about finance data being available, so we've heard the terms open book management, whatever, but people know where you're at financially.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We still have some things out there that from the past that we're still trying to clean up, and hopefully we can get that all taken care of within the next 30 to 60 days.
Now, talking about, as we say, finance, establishing health insurance committees, looking at these samples looks like more, once again, input from people who are involved.
Yeah, really, we need to always have the staff at the table, providing the voice and the support of any kind of initiative, and it needs to come from them. And so that's what we did with the Health Benefits Committee, and we've done that also with the Finance Committee, and we're doing that with the salary and benefits. That's all part of that whole picture. But also at the sites, we're really pushing and helping the principals understand what it means to collect data and to listen to the voice of the teacher and the students. And so this is probably the first time that principals are getting monthly training from me on how best to really turn it around, and you're not control that site anymore. You've got to face it, the parents and the students are in control, and all you're going to be doing is just responding because they want to learn. As long as they're empowered, they'll want to learn. If they're not empowered, then they're going to just do whatever you tell them to do, or they're going to resist. And so that's really a tough thing, and that takes a lot of training.
So it's kind of a different mindset, perhaps, for people who maybe have been administrators or principals or teachers for a long time. We're doing something differently.
Really, every K-12 system, Catholic, charter, public, struggles with this, and that's the top-down type of control. And really, the federal government telling the state government and the state all telling the district, what to do. They got to stop doing that. And so, really, what we find is that, and what we're finding, and what my research shows, you find out what the community wants, you find out what the teachers want, you find out what the students want and also need, and it's amazing how the achievement is going to go really well. And so I think as long as we follow that course, and it's pretty simple stuff, to be honest with you, but it's difficult because you're used to a different system.
Right.
And so once you put that in place, and that's why all the training of the principals, and the principals in turn are training at the sites, that's where you're going to get some really good results.
So really, when you talk about local schools, you are indeed emphasizing local.
Yeah, it's really a site-based, really classroom-based, and each one of those are a system, and in each case, you're serving a population, and that's who you need to listen to and who you need to respond to. And so really, as long as we're on that course and we allow that to happen, and we follow the plan that we put together, this will be the place to educate their kids. This will be the place to raise a family in about 5 years, no question. In Southwest Missouri, this will be. We'll be at the top of our game.
Now, you mentioned the plan. I know one time we visited, you talked about the strategic plan for the school district. People who are watching may recall that, and kind of curious how this ties into the strategic plan, where we're at with that.
Everything is driven by the strategic plan because the strategic plan came from our customers, came from the community, came from the teachers, came from the students, and different parent forums and all that. It's a one-page document, two-sided, and it really is very clear. It's all measurable. The vision is very clear. The mission is very clear. The goals are clear, and the indicators are it's all measurable. So we are well on our way to rolling it out. Empowerment is the first thing out the door, and then eventually the readiness factors have been put in place, indicators. And so it's very clear to the parents and to the students as well as to the teachers where they need to be by the end of third grade, second grade, first grade, kindergarten. And we're measuring their progress as we go, and it's based on that. It's very high rigor, and it's rooted in academic indicators as well as behavior indicators as well as physical wellness indicators. And so all those are in place as we speak, and so that is really driving a lot of the critical thinking.
Right, so something we'll continue to see
That's
develop
right.
and evolve. And
That's
so forth.
correct.
So as we're developing this, we're also, as a school district, Joplin's looking at a superintendent search.
That's
so our
correct.
viewers are probably curious where we stand on that.
Yeah, nice transition there. Basically, they've hired an association, Ray & Associates, who's done this for many, many years, and they're very good at it. And so they've worked with the community, got feedback from the community, both the teachers as well as the community, and as to what the type of superintendent they want. And they had an online survey, and I think 600 people respond to the online survey, and then they had small focus groups and different things like that to get feedback. And so they put together, and I failed to bring it with me, but they put together 12 things that they're looking for.
They're key points that people want in a superintendent.
They want a visionary. They want a person who is going to follow suit and be really focused on continuous improvement, really supporting the whole idea of empowerment, and really is a very good listener and not a control person who basically wants to get better. And really, it needs to be a community person who basically is visible and in the community and listens to the community, and so has a lot of flexibility. So it's
There's
pretty
a lot
close.
of key factors of what people say we want.
Pretty close to walking on water.
So where do we stand in the process? I know you've had the forums, the meetings. You're in the recruiting stage now, or
No,
advertising?
they are basically. I'm trying to stay back from it, just making sure I'm trying to manage it, but stay back from it, so I'm not in the middle of that, because that's a board decision and a community decision. So anyway, they right now, after they collected all that, they basically had a final approval of the board as to what they wanted in a superintendent. They put that into a flyer, and now it's on their website, and so they're getting good response. That's all I can tell you right now. They're getting very good response. I think the absolute drop dead deadline for application is September 23rd.
So it's coming up quickly.
Yeah,
People
very
need
quick.
to respond. So
Very
then we'll
quick.
be hearing about the process of interviews and the steps
That's
that
right.
they're going through.
Right. I think Tuesday, October 11th, they're going to be looking at a group of candidates that the Ray and Associates are going to be bringing to. They'll have a listing of all the candidates, but they'll probably have their recommendation as the top 12, and then they'll spend good 3 to 4 hours in a closed session going over those applications to figure out who they really want to interview.
Now, the viewers, public might be wondering, well, why do we need a consulting firm, more or less, to help with this type of search?
Yeah, basically what's really powerful about a consulting firm is they know how to listen, how to research. It was something that I was willing to do, but I didn't have time to do.
Right.
And so it's very similar to the journey that we took when I first came in, is to find out what the community wanted for its school system. So we would do this. We would have taken the same approach to figure out what they want for their superintendent. And that's what Ray and Associates is very good at, but also they're good recruiters. And so that's why we're getting a good response as far as people interested across the country. So they're getting responses mostly from I'm sensing from the Midwest, and so not just Missouri. So that's good. That's very good.
Good. So end of the year or so, we're looking at possibly having someone on board?
At the end of this calendar year.
Calendar year.
Not the end
Not
of the school
year.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
At the end of the calendar year, they hope to, by really this first couple of weeks in December, they hope to announce who their selection is, and then eventually, more than likely, take over July 1st.
Right, so you'll be there for that transition time as
Yep.
people are carrying through.
That's correct.
Well, some of the, we talked about the development in the school district's ongoing challenges in Joplin that you have discovered and are continuing to deal with. What would you list as a couple of the ongoing challenges for Joplin schools?
I think the ongoing challenge is communication. Basically, a communication that, and I'm getting used to it because it's a smaller community, and so the communication's different. But really, the social media is really critical. The communication related to Twitter, Facebook, the website, all that is very, very important. But also the communication with our media, with the Globe. We have some blogs. We have TV. And here's another good example.
Trying to communicate
Yeah,
with others.
and really, that to me is critical. And I think the energy around communication needs to help the community want to support, want to be able to vote, because I was really surprised at the small turnout for board elections in April. Very, very small. It was almost
A small percentage of registered
let's
voters.
put it.
Right?
Let's say I was shocked by it. And so, how do you create that energy and that excitement? Now, I'm assuming the presidential election in November is going to get a good turnout.
Bigger turnout, right. Well,
And
that's
so-
the question of the stakeholders. There are people who have children in school and then those who don't. How do you get those maybe who may not have had a child in school for a number of years to have that concern about the school district, trying to reach those stakeholders?
When I've done this in many, many different districts, I've always found that the senior, the grandparent is probably the most engaged, and they're probably the ones that are going to vote more than the parent. The parent doesn't vote very well. In fact, the parent vote tends to be very small. And so you have a staff vote and you have a senior citizen vote that tends to be pretty strong. And then what surprises me, though, is the overall community really doesn't get that support, that doesn't come out to vote. So I think that's part of it. I think the apathy, I don't know if I want to call it apathy. I think maybe just the desire, or like I said, I think it's a breakdown in communication. They don't realize how critical it is for them to help make decisions. So.
Great. Well, you've had some major steps in the last couple of years with facilities in the district. I guess this year you have the big projects finished, but you have another one on the table coming up with the Early Childhood Center. People might be curious about that coming down the road and how that is developing.
I think that's true, and I think the early childhood focus has seen a shift in Missouri over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, there was a pushback saying that that's really something the family needs to do, but they're beginning to realize the importance of getting that child working with other children as far as a social environment. Really very, very important to help them understand friendships, but also the academia, the letter recognition, the writing, the number recognition, all that kind of stuff needs to start at a very early age. And so I think the focus on early childhood in Joplin, Southwest Missouri, really throughout Missouri, is very strong right now.
So we're falling into that trend, and we'll have facility in a couple of years ready for those students.
By September of 18 is our plan. It will be. The doors will open at that time. They have to be, because that's the basis of our funding.
The grants that for
that's an absolute deadline. We have to you have to take care of it.
The schools in Joplin, you've put a lot of work into renovating some, updating others. Do you feel that that's some need still, perhaps, in some of the smaller schools?
We basically this is probably the best environment I've come into in my career as far as facilities are concerned, because the facilities are very well taken care of. There's always going to be needs. Even the newly constructed facilities, you always find that they have roofing issues, and so they leak and all that. And so there's always going to be that as far as facilities are concerned. So, but we do have some older facilities, and we did some nice improvement at Columbia, and we did some nice improvement in West Central, and it's really a major improvement, I would say, in those two sites, and the parents and the teachers really appreciate that. And so, but I think it's just going to be an ongoing need that we're always going to have as far as improvement, air conditioning, things like that. But no more. I don't think we're going to have any need as far as new facilities. Now, we have a need to be able to get rid of some of our facilities
because of their age, or the ones that are not being used,
or the tornado, And so we've had some Emerson, for instance. We're demolishing that, and then the Washington facility we're trying to get to. But that we're putting that on the market, and hopefully that'll move as well. So there are some of those things that are happening.
Right. Well, earlier you mentioned reporting to the board about finances. People are probably curious, and we hear about education in general and finances. Missouri seems to be a little brighter star than some of perhaps our neighboring states. But
no question.
Do you feel confident as far as how the state is funding education for us?
I feel better than our neighbors, because as soon as I moved west and get close to Oklahoma and Kansas, I'm feeling very good about it. But also Colorado's in that mix too. Colorado does not fund its programs very well either, and so really there's that deep central. Nebraska does, but so it's really Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado and a little bit of New Mexico are really struggling with funding. So as far as Missouri, Missouri I think has a good formula. And basically it ties to, for instance, we have a high assessed value, so we get less from the state than our contiguous districts who do not benefit from the assessed values, so the property tax. So what hurts us, though, is the TIF. The TIF is costing us about $1 million a year. But still, as you look at it, I think overall Missouri's approach to funding education is I like the way they fund education. It's always you always feel that they need to improve it.
Right, and you mentioned TIF, and it's not just a local; that's a statewide concern. I know I've read stories in other parts of the state where schools are concerned that you have that type.
Especially in your urban centers. We didn't have it in Springfield, but but you do have it in St. Louis. Right. Major TIF. Kansas City has major TIF issues, and then of course Joplin here lately because of the storm and stuff like that.
So that's something you just have to take into account when you're building that budget and looking at what can we do.
That's exactly right, and so that to me is always that's something that the community needs to realize. And we want to be as lean as possible, and then ultimately the community is going to look for ways to be able to support us, not just financially, but in other ways as well.
Going quickly to teachers, teacher retention, that was a concern early on.
It was the concern because of the culture. The culture was driving it more than the teacher salaries, but teacher salaries was part of that. Right. And so we've seen a major improvement in that this year. We did not have near the teacher turnover. Now, we did have quite a few new teachers, but you have to remember we brought in an extra 10 to 12, I think it was 12 FTE added to our system to help us with class size, but also to help us with flexibility around our specials, which is your physical education, your music, and your art. And so really that created a nice environment in our elementaries right now. And we have pockets, just very small pockets, 1 or 2, maybe no more than 3 classrooms that are somewhat large, but the rest of them are pretty comfortable.
Great. Now, how about growth for the student enrollment? Do you see that? I mean, when you look at the numbers, the people say the numbers seem to be going up a little bit.
Yeah, they are. They're just slightly going up. But the thing is that I think we're back to where we were pre-tornado. And so I anticipate, if we were to do a demographic study, I think we will, as long as we behave ourselves and we have a high-performing system, we will attract more and more people into our system. But right now, I would say it's just gradually growing, yes.
And the facilities that were built post-tornado were built for growth?
Yes, they were. In fact, in East, as well as Soaring Heights. Now, Soaring Heights is really getting the numbers. East picked up quite a few. We had a shift because we made a map shift.
The boundaries of the schools.
A boundary shift. We made a boundary shift between South Middle School and East prior to my coming, way prior. And so they grandfathered that, and this year we realized it, and so there's about 50 students, number-wise, not faces, numbers-wise, went from south to east, but that's the major shift right there.
Right. So keeping an eye on the community where people are building the growth, that's an ongoing process.
It really is. It really is. And really, this year I'm focusing really on 2 sites that, not because of growth, but because of need of neighborhood and community, and that is McKinley and really 3 sites: McKinley, Irving, and Jefferson. There's 4, Jefferson. But really making sure that there's strong support there, but also making sure we have good quality going on there. And so we're seeing some really exciting things happening in each of those sites.
Great. Well, kind of a final question. If someone were to stop you after the interview and say, well, what are you most proud of for the Joplin School District? What would you say is your point of pride for Joplin?
I think the point of pride that I really think is that our teachers and our students are really awesome. And they've worked very hard, but they weren't working very smart. And so now what we're doing is we're helping them get a little more smart. What I mean by smart is that basically just giving them a system that they feel more comfortable in, and they're beginning to realize and discover that they really are good. And so we're trying to help them, and really I think we're finding many different ways of building that love of self, and really in building that love of self in the adult, we're seeing that also happening with the students. And so therefore we're going to have that genuine concern for others, but also there's going to be a built-in curiosity, and that's what I'm excited about, because when I'm walking the sites now, you can feel it and you can see it, and it's just a dramatic shift from a year ago.
So really building that confidence within.
That's right, and it's really fun to be, and love to take anybody on a walk through our schools. I was in a school the other day, and it was unbelievable. It was not so much that it was quiet, but boy, there was good engagement, good learning going on. It was just awesome, and I'm really seeing that in every site to a certain degree. I have no really major concerns about any of our sites right now.
Great. Well, Dr. Ritter, I'd like to thank you for visiting with us today, sharing with our audience.
Sure, you bet. Always love coming.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us this week. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.